I see it.
We are live.
Yay.
Yes, I think we're here. So my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton-Sehon, and I am with swiftfire.org, True TV. Let me see if I could, there we are. I'm super excited. If you only knew, I say that every time because it's a freaking miracle that I can ever even get a computer or an internet or a whatever to actually work to get live for some reason. I'm sending all the angels of technology to come. Does it show that I'm live? Anybody see it? No? On Facebook?
It says you're live on Facebook.
My Facebook page? I'm seeing me there. You're on
My phone says live on Facebook.
Okay. Refresh maybe. Weird. Why? Oh, you know what? Is it set to friends only? Oh, it's locked. That's helpful. So only I can see it, only me. Here we go, public.
There we go.
See it? Yes. Only takes 45 women to figure this out. Anyway, so hi. So what I'm trying to say and what we're choosing to do today is actually interview Heidi, who was boots on the ground at the Mega Million March. I would have loved to be there and actually had plans to interview her live while she was there. And she can explain more what happened of why that didn't happen. But I did want you guys to hear firsthand from someone who had actual experience being there. So thank you for being here, Heidi. And please do share a little bit about your experience.
Okay. Well, Sharnael, I love you, friend. I'm so glad to be here. It's so good we worked this out. All right. Friday night, as a Friday night about 10 p.m., I was not going to be able to go, but there was a bus going from my area. I live in Williamsburg, Yorktown, Jamestown, Virginia, you know, like the heart of American history. And it's about 3 hours from DC. And I had really, really wanted to go too, but I didn't want to go by myself. And yeah, I'm sure you can understand why, especially through what I tell you. But I got a text in the middle of the night saying, I hope you're ready because we have a seat and we want you to jump on the seat. So 6:45, I'm leaving my house full. I had gotten packed just in case, and ran out the door, didn't know a soul, left knowing so many amazing patriots from my area. And actually my seatmate was from Dallas, Texas. She was there on vacation. She found out about it. She told her husband, I have to go. So she went and we had the best time together. And I think that that's probably what I will say first and foremost is, we got there were people from all different walks of life there. I cannot tell you all different states. I personally talked to people from Maryland, Kentucky, upstate New York, Florida, Texas, obviously, Colorado, California. I saw a little blurb this morning of someone from Alaska. I've been to the town where she's from, has like 70 people in it. Like there were people from all over, and the message was consistent. It was clear. We are not going to let anyone steal this election. We're not going to let anyone take our voice. We're not going to let anyone steamroll over a bunch of Americans that know where we want this country to go. Not only that, I think that every American and everyone in the world should know that at least America rides on a transparent election. And there's tens of millions of people out there that do not believe this was legitimate. And I'll leave it at that because the courts can sort it out. There's tons of evidence out there. I'm not really going to get into that, but I do want to say, I mean, we every color, Black, white, Native American, you know, Asian American, Chinese, Vietnamese. I talked to refugees. I talked to former Cubans, and especially you guys, the Cuban population has got it because they know the signs of what we're talking about. Like, I'm just going to leave it at that. The most interesting people that I talked to were from Cuba. So if I mean, unfortunately, they know our options at this point are freedom or communism, totalitarianism. That's basically what we're looking at. And a lot of us were there, we're like, we're not going to let them do that. This is like the time in history where we're like pivoting on one or the other. So I went there. There were tons of people. We started at Freedom Plaza, which is several blocks from the White House. We didn't go past that. And actually what they've done now with the White House is they barricaded it even farther from the Rose Garden fence. Like, there's maybe a block or so, but it's barricaded off. You can't even get to the Rose Garden fence at this point. So we started out the day just like I used to start school when I was little, with the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the national anthem. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful to hear all of these voices, resonating together, singing what we know. And I would actually encourage you to go back and look at the words to the Star Spangled Banner, because we're right there. Like, we're literally living out. Maybe it doesn't feel like that, but in a digital sphere and in the minds of people, we are literally living out what they were doing physically with their own bodies. So I walked up Pennsylvania Avenue towards the Capitol building, which is on the opposite side of Pennsylvania Avenue from the White House. So yesterday was my first day to DC. I've never been to DC before. It was an amazing day to be able to go. People were wonderful. They were delightful. They were so happy to tell us why they came, what they loved about not just President Trump, but this country. Because I think that what we all need to recognize is that he right now is literally like the blockade between us and totalitarianism. And he is literally like blocking that way. So people hate him. He said numerous times, they only hate me because they want you and they're coming for you and I'm in the way. And that is very much true. And so it's so much more than just about President Trump. I mean, what he's been able to do these last 4 years is remarkable. But what I noticed is people were like, I'm not standing back anymore. I'm not letting them do this anymore. I'm not letting them get away with this anymore. And we had the most amazing conversations, because we asked everyone we talked to why they were there, what they hoped to accomplish, and it was consistent. And it was the same. Everyone had the same sentiment. So then we walked past the Capitol building, and around the Capitol building. So what I did not say earlier was that whenever there was a massive concentration of people, like at Freedom Plaza at the very beginning, and then at the Supreme Court building, which is at the top of the hill at the very end of like DC proper, they were either too many people online, so that, how like when you're at Young Living Convention, for example, like sometimes you can't get a signal because everybody's trying to live stream. It was either that, or somebody said later, and I don't know this, I can't verify that, and I recommend everyone verify everything. But one side of it was saying, no, Facebook was actually blocking people from being able to get online. And I know I tried several times to get online on Facebook. I tried, calling Sharnael. I couldn't even, get out. It was weird. But I almost feel like they were like it was definitely not possible to stream live when there were tons of people there. And come to find out later that, it was on the news, but they just said a few people showed up. Well, I'm sorry. Like, I was there. There were not just a few people. There were literally like, I don't even know. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people there. And I think that, I saw Kayleigh McEnany, the press secretary, said there were 1 million people there. I'm not sure how you could count, but like, there were definitely not just a few people there. There were lots of people. What I also noticed was just I told Sharnael earlier when we tried to record this, there was a little bit of, I would say, structural warfare happening. We were in DC and a lot of the places were boarded off. They expected a Trump win on Tuesday night. So a lot of these places boarded up. DC is largely pro Democrat Party. Mm-hmm. So like, I think I read 95% of the voting population in DC voted for Biden and only 5% voted for Trump. And I hate to say probably the 5%, were the people in the cabinet, the people on his staff, you know, all this. Unfortunately, I don't know for sure, but what I will tell you is that being a woman, having to like, you know, take care of business, like personal business and stuff, we literally had the most trouble finding a bathroom. And I'm like, to me, it does not cease to baffle me how people don't get that there is literally a terrorist attack on this country right now. Because to have the best country in the world and have all the bathrooms closed off when you're expecting hundreds of thousands of people is just ridiculous to me. And so people can say what they want, and the news has already come out and said that all agitation and stuff was happening on the part of Trump supporters. And if you hear that, don't believe it for a second. Everything was amazing until we left. We got on the bus. I saw one potential like skirmish right in front of the Capitol building, and there were people on the ground. The police, unfortunately, were standing by and letting it happen. And there were great patriot, most were men. I'm sure there were some women there too, who stepped in and took care of it. And don't believe for a second, you know, the agitation was not happening from Trump supporters. They were literally playing defense. And but it was just sad for me too. The other side of the administrative warfare that I saw was the fact that the police, in my opinion, were not the type of law enforcement that I typically say I support. Because to me, they were not working for the people. They were working for something else. And that's just my opinion. You can take it or, you know, or leave it. But I was there and I watched it, and I talked to some police officers, and they seemed very aloof. They seemed very like not willing to help. And that is not what I'm used to. I'm not used to that. And I just, I don't know if I expected it, but I wasn't surprised when I experienced it. I did see some footage last night of some police officers that stepped in at some point, but not until after some Trump support. Like there were some agitations and skirmishes coming from opposition. And I'm not even sure if I can say on this video who they would have been, but fill in your favorite name of like, you know, someone who's been riding in the streets lately, and that's who it was. And the police didn't step in until after these pro-Trump supporters stepped in and played interference and basically stopped it. I will say there were, you know, so many amazing speakers. Mike Lindell was there speaking. He's the president of My Pillow. He's the one who came out totally in support of the president. The president enlisted him to make masks earlier in the pandemic. Jack Flynn was there. Jack Flynn is Michael Flynn's brother. He was there speaking on behalf of their family. There were so many, you know, so many other people. I was so mad because I went to the bathroom. We had stopped at a restaurant. We got some food. We were sitting outside, and I went inside to use the facilities. And while I was inside, Kevin McCarthy came by. Kevin McCarthy is at this point, he's the minority leader in the House in DC. And it's very likely that he's going to become the majority leader, the speaker, once we're done with all of this mess. Because the GOP basically has narrowed they're basically narrowed the, Nancy Pelosi, from what I understand, is not able to have the majority position in the House because of where the results came from with the election. You guys, it was an incredible day. It was an incredible day. And it was not until I was actually headed back on the bus that I got message after message after message from people saying, "Are you all right? I'm hearing that there are now agitations happening among the march." And I'm like, you know what? Thank God we're fine. Unfortunately, you know, I read somewhere that the roaches come out once it gets dark. And that's what it seemed like to me. It's like everything was great until we left about 4. And I didn't start getting messages till about 5. "Hey, I hope you're not there anymore. Are you okay? Please tell me you're all right." And thank God I didn't go by myself. Like, you know, unfortunately, I was safe and felt like I was with family all day. I went home and I felt, you guys, let me tell you how I feel now. I feel heavy. I feel broken. We had an amazing day, and I'm not going to let go of that. The people have spoken, the people made it clear. But I feel like we're getting to like the crux, like the defining battle. And the time is now. You know, whether you set your intention or pray or both, put on your oils, do praise music, walk in the grass, barefooted, whatever you do. Like, to me, morning after, like, I've been talking to a few people this morning already, and we feel like, the enemy is being more audacious. I don't like to use word bold with the enemy, because bold to me has a strong positive connotation, but the word audacious is what I see. There's audacity, and we saw it with the agitations that were coming out. They were hurting children last night. They were coming after biracial families. They were coming after the elderly population. Like, these are people who are fighting dirty. When you come after children, to me, like, that is like, my husband's a soldier, and in battle, you do not touch the innocent. I'm sorry, not to cry. Like, that to me tells me what we're playing with.
Yeah,
And
I was actually going to bring that up, because you and I both share a military background, and I know too that you lived overseas in Germany, which I lived over there too, and you've seen the world. You and I have traveled to many, 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 many countries personally. You and I have traveled together and seen lots of things, not just because of military, but because of our other job. And so two things I want to get from your perspective is, number one, of course, your military background of, leaving out, military should be military to military. There shouldn't be any side stuff of, hurting children, elderly,
right.
but also your perspective of, I've said this in several videos, just because I've been to places like Haiti and Oman, and nothing against any of that. I've been to East Berlin before the wall came down. I've seen communism. I've seen poverty. I've been to Africa, all over Africa, and nothing against, great places and beautiful people. And also there's a difference in things as far as, just the things that we take regular here, of having a grocery store, or being able to sleep on a bed, or have a house and literally a roof over your head, and clean water, and that kind of stuff. And I kiss the ground when I come back, no matter if it's from Dubai, that's amazing, or England, that's some of the more regular places. When I say regular, what we're used to in America. But there's still something different about here. And I'm seeing that with this tension and division, it feels to me a lot like when I lived in Germany, and there was this constant threat at the time when I was a child of, like, just them not wanting us to be there, and or the Russian threat, that was, whether that was real or not. They were bombing our house, they were demonstrating. They bombed our car. They demonstrated in the streets. There was just this tension there. And, my son is in the military now and has been deployed a couple times. And so there's just an unrest that feels, in that I feel that it feels familiar to some of those things that I have felt in other countries. And that's not what I choose for this country. And that song that you were talking about, that song brings tears to my eyes every time, because being with my experiences and my background, and knowing, if you don't know the roots of that song, to actually go look to see that they fought to keep that flag up, because as long as the flag was up, that meant that we were still in control, and people were dying. They literally propped up soldiers' bodies.
Yes.
To keep that flag up. And yet we have this whole other situation here where people are burning flags. And I saw last night on the news that they were burning flags, they were burning. I think that should be a federal offense, straight up. You're in jail forever if you, or just leave. You're booted out, you lose your citizenship, and you're not allowed to come back if you burn a flag. To me, sorry, you're going to get me every time if you burn a flag or hurt an innocent child or an elderly person. So I'd love to hear your perspective of just that.
Well, you know, it's hard. I know you feel this way too, Sharnael. I've had friends who died for this country, and it, I have friends who've lost their husbands. I have friends whose kids don't have their dad anymore, and it incenses me to think that people think it's okay to burn the flag, that they hate this country so much that they're willing to do that. To me, that is the worst travesty. I'm just saying my mind. It is the worst travesty in the world to have people disrespect the people who've died for this country so they could be free to do almost to do what they're doing. You know, like I agree with you. There should be a boundary. Like what I told someone yesterday is like freedom of speech is okay as long as you don't hurt someone, you know, or something or disrespect our country. And
Or
that's
our
what we see.
president.
Or our president. And that's what I was going to say was we did have a few. The only time, a couple of times I saw people with like a Biden sign or something, which I'm just going to say, I don't mean to make this a party issue. I actually really believe it's a spiritual battle. And if you actually support Biden, you really need to dig deep on what he actually wants to do in this country. It's not good. It's not good. We're one step away from having, you know, what groceries we do have in the store be like only ketchup. You know, you want it this kind of ketchup or that kind of ketchup. They're the same kinds of ketchup, but that's all the store has. Like that's how far we are off. That's what's happening in Venezuela right now. But anyway, I digress. But the only time I saw any kind of mean or disrespectful activity were like one guy was like one Biden support. He had a sign up and he was basically cursing people and flipping off. So that was one. We were walking home the second time, and again, this was about 3:30 in the afternoon. So it was before things got bad, but there was a car driving down the street the other direction. And they were again flipping us off, saying like F Trump and all this. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like Biden. And if he becomes president, God forbid, he will not become president. Okay. So like cancel clear what I just said, because he's not becoming president. But let's pretend, you know, if that were the case, I have in the past had to submit to the authorities that were placed over me, even the ones I didn't like. Okay. And I recognize the fact that part of my responsibility as an American is to submit to the authorities that are placed over me, but I won't submit to any authority that's illicitly placed over me. And that's what we're having happen right now. And people are being made to be okay with it. You know, I can't believe all the number of people who've told me, well, can't you just accept the results of the election? And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I'm doing this for you, because even though you may like the results or whoever was reported in the news, like this to me, this is not a legal election. And that's one of the actions that these regimes do, these totalitarian regimes do. It's like the first step in. I had lunch last week with the my local county women's Republican organization. And one of the ladies who was there grew up in East Germany. And she literally raised her hand. We had a speaker, so, you know, the Republican candidate for our next governor here in Virginia, Amanda Chase. And this woman from East Germany literally broke down. This was like the day after the election or something. She's like, this is what it's like when you're moving towards a communist regime. And I don't think people get that. Like that, this is serious. This is not like, oh, I'm not a Democrat or I'm not a Republican. This is like they're trying to take this country from the people and change it into something it's not. And East Germany, Cuba, Venezuela, you know, all of these countries, I have talked to people from those countries and they're like, this is what it's like. This is what you guys, if you don't watch out, that's where you're going there. And the problem is that innocent people include us. Like, we didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. You know, it doesn't, you know, votes being suppressed. Like that's a slogan the media uses. For the actual votes that are being suppressed are people who voted for Trump. I'm just being honest. It's not like a, hey, we should all like, you know, riot because we voted for Trump. That's not it. It's just my vote is worth like 0.8 of a person. And to me, that sounds like slavery. That is exactly what the 14th Amendment did away with when the slaves were given full vote. But now they're reversing that and they're taking away conservative votes. That's what they're doing. They're reducing yours and my voice, and people don't recognize that. Like, but what they're doing on the opposite side is they're actually inflating votes for Biden. So that means that somebody voted for Biden, they're worth like 1.5 of a person. Why are they worth more than me? Like, that's not fair. I didn't ask for that. Like, I have a different opinion. That's the only difference. So it's aggravating. The other thing I'll say is that I have a lot of friends all over the world, just like you do. And I talk to them and they're like, we're watching, because this is the last country where we actually, and we feel like we don't have freedom. We have seen nothing yet. You feel like your freedoms have gotten taken away. This is the last country we have actual freedom. And if we don't watch out, it will get taken away. And I'm not trying to, like, I didn't expect to come on here and say this morning. This is how I'm feeling the morning after, because I'm actually more pissed off than I was yesterday. Like, it's really bad. Like, I'm really now more concerned, because we can't keep saying, well, they'll fix it. They'll fix it. You know what? Like, we can't stand by and let someone else fix this. Like, it's up to us. And that concerns me deeply, because I see a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm so glad you went to DC for me. And that's great. I'm glad I went to DC for them too. But, like, what are you doing to make sure your voice
been
is
my
heard?
message. If you've watched anything that I've talked, that I've said in the last few months is, and you probably run into this too with some of the spiritual and or Christian. No, nothing against anything spiritual or Christian. I consider myself spiritual Christian,
Yes, and Christian.
but
Yeah.
they a lot of what I'm hearing is, well, we're just praying and God is in control and the government wouldn't let any of this. And, it is a lot of weight to me to put on one man, to have to carry all of that. And I'm not saying he doesn't have amazing people that are surrounding him and backing him up, but I also am God in action, and that we have to remember that we have the DNA of God in ourselves, that we are
Right.
commissioned to be here, to occupy and to take dominion, meaning dominion here first within us, and then around, and to make heaven on earth. And,
Yes.
it's not this whole, like, someone else will do it, I'm going to watch Netflix and,
Right.
right. And so that it's
Yeah.
been a little having faith in action, God in action, words are one thing, prayers are very powerful, and also faith without works is dead. So
Right.
it has been a little bit aggravating at times for people who don't, oh, well, I don't do politics, I don't get into that because I'm a Christian and I just, separation, blah blah blah. It's like, to me, if you're not in the game, you're just sitting out on the bench here for this, then you're basically letting other people who will be making all the rules for our life and our generations to come. It's like, so you're not
Right.
interested in that, you're not interested in the future, you're not interested in dominion at all for for our country and for our laws. I don't know. Is it true, Caroline? This morning, Caroline said something like there was some law that was passed. I believe it was in Pennsylvania. I don't know if it was the right state, that they hurry up and did a law that said they will be able to not do any recount whatsoever. I would like to verify that, but isn't it a little sketchy that that's never been a law, if that's really true, that all of a sudden there's this big fraudulent thing that's come up, and it's like, now from this day, starting today or whatever, like nobody can do a recount on that state. It's like, why? To me, if there's nothing to hide, then show your cards. Like, to
Yes.
me, don't look
Agree.
over here. And I had
Yeah.
made the I had said to earlier, it's like, you don't do a poker game and declare yourself the winner and take all the money and then leave the poker game and not have to show your cards. Like,
Right.
I'm with you on the whole, like, let's be transparent, let's be real. If there's nothing to hide, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about, people. Like,
Right.
there's
Yeah.
nothing to worry about. And so let's just keep it all on the up and level, and let's see what's really going on. And when it all sorts itself out, then we'll really know. But the fact that they tried to move things in the direction with the brainwashing and the censoring, which I have a whole video on that, by blasting out their big party that they did all over the internet,
Yes.
of how he
Right.
declared himself the winner. You know, that has a dual effect. Number one, as we image that and get the whole world literally to image that, then they can accept that, come into agreement with that, if they choose, and then their eye gates, ear gates, everything, their heart is all connected to that, and that creates
Right.
and goes out into the biofield. And so then they use us and our creative nature to actually create for them.
Exactly.
The other side of that, yeah, so the other side of that is, even if they're wrong, which they are, it's very like narc type MO mod of operation, of just this undermining epsilon type thing of like, I won, let everyone come into agreement that I won, tell both sides, you know, whatever. That way, when it is coming out that there's issues, then they got to move these other people who actually already had come into an acceptance of, wait, they're taking this from me. And it's like,
exactly.
but you never had it, because it shouldn't have never been declared, because we haven't even figured it out yet, because it's not even worked out. But all of this mass amount of people and their energy of it already happened. And then there's this other side of people who, like us, or the million that showed up, it's not happened for us, you know.
No.
I mean, it's happened as far as we know that he won, meaning he won. And so there's basically a battle of information, a battle of timelines, a battle of energy here. It's a frequency war, an energy war, and they're using media to censor the truth, so there can be no creation of that, and suppress that, but also to image a nation by imaging what they truly, their outcome mapping on the big screen for everyone to image.
I woke up this morning to, go ahead. Sorry to cut you
Well,
off.
and that word imagination, to image a nation, and in this case, a world, because you and I, we do have friends all over the world, and I have talked to lots of people overseas on a regular. That's just part of my job. And I've asked them, what is it that you're seeing? What are you feeling? What are your people? And I spoke with some people in England and Australia, and they're all just on the brink too of watching every second and just being like on the edge of like with hope for Trump. And they're doing these rallies and stuff over there overseas. And it's like, why, you know, what is it? And everyone comes back with the same thing as, you have someone to stand up for you. You have this person who's standing up for your country. And it gives us hope that if you have someone who stands up for you, they're saying, we don't have anyone to stand up for us like you do. So we're hoping and cheering you guys on, because it gives us hope that maybe we can have that too. But if this turns the other way, then they're feeling like they're out too, because then they're, who's left,
Yep. I've gotten the same response from people from Germany and the Netherlands. Like, those are where my friends are that I've talked to specifically. I have a girlfriend here. She's a Romanian American. She said the same thing about the Romanians. They're hopeful that Trump, and they're still envisioning with us that he is, as we know, the president. We know he's the rightful president because we know that he was duly elected, and that's been taken away. When I woke up this morning, I saw it. I put it in my stories this morning, but it was a montage, and I can send it to you. But it was like 20 or 30 newspapers that all had this like, we need unity and healing. And I was like, this is a bunch of BS, because I was there yesterday. The unity and healing is not coming from where they say it's coming, because where they're saying it's coming from, it's not coming from. But that, again, they're trying to get people to envision, to, create this vision of that coming to play with, unfortunately, I hate to say the other B and H, it's not going to happen with them, but they're trying to get people to see it. And in seeing that, you can create it.
And where was the unity the last 4 years?
Right. Yeah. We haven't lived through any unity. I don't even know what all that's about. Like it's actually, for those of us who know that the emperor is naked, it's a little bit weird to see people actually say that. It's even weirder to see people actually believe that. Like, cause I know people who believe totally that oh, that's what they're going to do. And I'm like, wow, I can't even believe. But, so we have to be really careful right now because the media right now is working. We know that there have been more networks joining the deception over the last week and a half. We know they're outing themselves, but they're working overtime to create that image that you saw. And so right now, I totally agree with you that we haven't, I'm sure you probably in other videos have touched on the spiritual frequency aspect. And, I'm a firm believer in the fact that I hate to say that I'm a little bit I won't even let my children say the names of the other two candidates, because I'm like, we're envisioning, we know what we know to be the truth. I'm not going to give way into deception. I'm not going to give way into falsehood. I'm not going to give way into, now, if they audit all the votes and they do so above board, because there's some contention there too. Apparently, people are saying, oh, well, there's deep state people, auditing the votes and all this stuff. And I'm like, I have to trust that that's not the case. Go ahead. You look like you were going to say something. Yeah.
I put out something yesterday. I don't know if you saw that or if any of your people have seen this, but I have a personal friend. I don't know if you've seen all the things that they put out for volunteers to come recount.
Yeah.
And it's all over, right? And I actually personally know someone who was supposed to be going to Michigan and had signed up and was all ready and doing her patriotic duty to go out there and do it. Well, suddenly Michigan was shutting down anyone from any outside the state to come in. And if they did come, they had to quarantine for 2 weeks, which would eliminate anyone from coming in to do this within the time. Yes. Wait, and it gets crazier. But they did say you can still do it if you would like to, but you'll have to do it remote.
How do you count the votes remote?
So
interesting.
What does that look like to count remote? Are we going to be on a Zoom counting remote? Or are we going to send truckloads of the ballots to your house? Because that's not sketchy and couldn't have any room for error in either of those two scenarios. I'm not sure how anyone is remotely going to count ballots from multiple places outside of the state in which it needs to be counted. So, and I had actually heard that Washington had shut down several states for me to even be able to come in because, and also two certain email organizations had stopped allowing anything about the march to go out. A certain other platform canceled the event completely. It's actually a platform that I use, so I'm not going to say who it was, but they wouldn't allow the event. They canceled it, and lots of places put out misinformation that the event was canceled altogether.
Right.
So I have no doubt that there would be probably double the amount of people who would have showed up if there weren't all of these blockages of misinformation and or you come in or what have you as well.
Right. Yeah. And meanwhile, they also shut down a bunch of groups that had, organically formed to disseminate information about the event yesterday. There were so many things. Yeah. I mean, who's to say we couldn't have had 2 million people there yesterday? The American people clearly feel disenfranchised. The one thing too I want to tell people about is to watch out for, and I don't know if you've already talked about this, is Stockholm syndrome. Because what is happening right now in the media is classic Stockholm syndrome, and that basically is where, and you probably know more about this than I do, where a captor will basically convince the captive that endear themselves. Oh, I'm really not that bad. Oh, everything is okay. Like, I don't know why you're making such a big deal about it. It's typical gaslighting is maybe the methodology they use, but it is classic Stockholm syndrome. And the problem with that is that's like a terrorism technique. Like, that's something they do on prisoners of war, and they're trying to average Americans now. So that's why you see in the media of like, well, I don't, they also make people, like for instance, on the Trump side, look like they're crazy, right? I was watching a clip this morning of a Fox News contributor that was basically like completely ramroding this one attorney, and he would not let her talk. He, basically discounted everything. He asked her a question, and then he never let her answer. And instead of like, not only it was bad enough for him not to let her answer, but every time she did try to speak, he was completely like picking on every little thing that she said. So people just need to be aware that that's a technique that's being used right now. It's like the keep your head on a swivel is like a real thing. And I actually think like right now the battle is hitting the streets, and like the spiritual battle is playing out right in front of us. And we have a choice. We can either be, like you mentioned, like sovereign individuals, living in our God-given, imagery, and like standing up against it, or we stay passive and just let it happen to us. But that's not what God intended when he made us. Like we literally were called to have dominion over this earth, and right now the dominion is being, that's something that's, the battle is playing out right in front of us. We can either step back and like, oh well, you have it, I don't want to get hurt, or we can say no, like this, you're not going to do that. This battle belongs to God or whatever, and I'm standing up and I'm doing something about it. Like it might be too late tomorrow. Like that's kind of how I feel this morning, the day after. Like we have a battle in front of us, and we have a choice. Like we're either going to let everybody else go to the march and just sit back and like not do anything, or we're going to stand up and do something, because the time is like right now. And if we go back to the Constitution, the way it was written to protect our God-given unalienable rights. Like every person is sovereign. Every person has these life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Those are all our objectives, but they're not things that are handed to us. And we're about to lose it all because we're waiting for Trump to give it to us. That's my feeling the day after. I'm like, we're not done.
Yeah, and going back to, you mentioned the Stockholm, part of the, if you just look up brainwashing techniques in general, I have a whole video that I just did on it, but just to touch on a few is misinformation, because if you're confused, you're more programmable. So misinformation, incorrect information, mass amounts in multiple places to keep you so confused that you're not sure what's going on. And then this was happening, from March on about another subject of, no, you got to do this. No, you got to do that. Now we're going to do this. Now that doesn't work. So this. And then also taking, censoring anything that is truth. So when the doctors came forward and were explaining, oh no, there's here, this is what you could do, or censoring anything about just how to basically work with your own immune system. So all of that was kind of a practice run with like, let's just see what they'll do with this. And, I'm sad to see some of the results of that, and still we're in that too. There's these other timeline things of subjects things too. And so, but taking away real information, having misinformation. So, because if you're in a beta state and your brain waves are in beta, then you're more programmable. So then they can introduce this other information, and it goes right into the frequency. But another thing is deprivation of food, sleep, that kind of thing, which we're seeing with different, the fires in California, whatever, all that kind of stuff is just not only a distraction, but the hurricanes and what have you, and the quarantine is making it. Now we have this truck situation, no tires or whatever deal. So there's literally not food, it's creating fear and panic and that kind of stuff. So again, when you're in fear and you don't have your stuff and things aren't normal and it's all chaotic, then it's easy to program. The other thing is isolation. So we got isolation going on a little bit, and then now they're talking about bigger lockdowns,
Yeah.
longer
Yeah.
lockdowns,
Right.
and Trump got on a few days ago, and literally, I don't know how many times, was it 5 or 6 times I heard him say, just in a short period of time, under no circumstances whatsoever in my administration will we have lockdowns. And he
Yeah.
just said it
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again, because he understands that that causes other things, as you and I know in the field that we're in with health, that there's a mental aspect to that, that there's suicide has gone up, and there's other, alcoholism and
Right.
drugs and
Domestic
suicide,
abuse is up.
domestic
Hmm.
abuse. So, but to leave on a positive, I would just
Yeah. Okay.
encourage everyone to remember your power. And my friend Dana actually had an amazing dream last night. And I look at dreams, and especially if you're with others in a groups and then you get this dream, it's for us all. And we all have to pay attention to these kind of we don't have to, but we have the opportunity to pay attention to the synchronicities. And in her dream, there were thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and they're all just everywhere. And we were all given these bath salts, like bath bombs, specifically bath bombs. And within one of the bath bombs was a thumb drive that contained all this information. And
Wow.
the enemy was trying to take away the thumb drive, so we would not have the information. And she said in her feeling, it was like well known that if one person had the thumb drive, that it meant that we all had the thumb drive. And
Wow.
the fact that one person had it as the carrier, they had it because that way the enemy couldn't find which person it was to take it away. And yet we all had this download of information already within us. Now,
That's amazing.
and my friend Caroline, her interpretation, she's part of that too. She brought in another piece, is that bath bombs represent, self-care, relaxing, it sets off, it dissolves kind of quickly. And then there's this essence of smell and, this sensory type experience. And yet, so what she was saying is it's in the self-care, it's in the being quiet, it's in the ability to just stay and relax, that we were getting the downloads, that we were able to access the thumb drive, because it was when the ball would dissolve, then we had the information. And so I would encourage everybody, that's Dana Kamak and Caroline Boudreau, dear friends of mine that I've been in ministry with for absolute years, early 90s. And so I would just encourage everyone to really remember that what you focus on, you make room for, and that this is, yes, a time of action, and yes, a time to be a digital warrior and to speak your truth and voice your choice and image and hold and protect the image that you choose, outcome map, what have you. The card that I had picked 2 times, 2 different decks, was hold the vision, hold the vision, hold the vision. Two separate decks, 2 complete different people had these decks, and they both pulled hold the vision. And
that's awesome.
For us to remember too, that self-care is very, very important, to kind of get out of the box. And there's all these boxes within boxes with boxes, and with each box, meaning we're looking at a screen, but it's within Facebook, you know what I mean, or whatever. So we got the Facebook net within the computer net, within the house net. There's all these like layers, like the dolls that keep getting smaller or bigger depending on. And so for what I would say is hold the vision, but also go inside, get into nature, do the things that you were talking about, get really grounded, hear what source is saying to you, and allow that to come out and into the biofield to actually create, and hold that and use your creative power, and just make sure that there is self-care involved, and that you're not staying in the beta and the frustration and the worry and what if, and not being around people like that, and not getting that sensory beta through the television, which that's a whole different MK Ultra weapon that they're using
Yes.
on a mass level. And maybe even scalar waves, and I know harps and dues and all of that too, but on what is your end note? We got this, is what I was.
We got this.
We are born for this. We are picked. We are handpicked. We're chosen. I keep hearing yes. Many are chosen. What is it? Many are
called, but few are chosen. Many are called.
If you look at that from a God in our DNA view, instead of this outside external Santa Claus God that's in the sky, many are called. All of us are called, but few are chosen. So what's the difference between those are quote chosen? For me, it's your choice. It's our choice. It's yes. Are we going to stand up and stay? Are we going to be God in action? Are we going to do the things that are required of us at this time? And we get the choice to not do that, or we get the choice to do it. And I'm saying that let's be on the right side of history right now, because this is a pivotal historic time.
This is a moment. Yeah. So Sharnael, I 100% agree with everything you said. I wanted to thank Dana and Carolyn for your vision, for the vision that God gave you, because I wholly see that. Here's my story. You're absolutely right. Like, this is the pinnacle point, and we are the ones who get to choose whether to be part of this. Here's how I think about where we are right now. Someone is just about to hand off the baton, or they already have handed off the baton in a race. So like I was a runner. I do mostly long distance, but I've done some relays too. When you're in a relay race, you actually practice the handoff. The handoff is super critical, and you have to decide before you take the baton that you're going to take it and just run. I feel like we're at that point where we have to decide that before we get the baton, that when we get it, we are just going to take off like a bat out of you-know-where for the finish line. Like, there is no, if we hem and haw, we've lost the race. And that's where I don't want to end on the negative, but I do want to tell people, like, decide now that you're here for such a time as this. Like, decide now that you're, like, not on your watch, not on my watch. Like, we're going to make sure this happens. And this is the time, like, so the other vision I've had recently is, in Narnia, this is how I'm going to finish. Okay. It used to bother me earlier in my spiritual journey that we had all these people, these children with, like, kings and queen, like, crowns and stuff. It's like, what's up with that? I don't really understand that. And I did come to the conclusion 6 and 7 years ago that, well, just means that we are created in God's image. We're, designed to have dominion over the earth. But that vision of all of those 4 children have come to mind over and over again in the last few weeks. Like, we are Edward and Peter and Susan and oh my gosh, what's the last one? The little girl, I can't remember her name at the time, but I should have known earlier. But we are those people. We are the boys and we're the girls, and we stand on this earth. We've been recognized as sovereign, and we need to not run from that. Like, that is our God-given destiny, and this is our time. And I guess that's how I'm going to finish it, is like, this is amazing. Like, when you're just about to give birth, it hurts the worst. But then right after you have the baby, you're like, oh, this is amazing. We're just about to give birth. But don't stop now. Like, the baby's coming out. Like, basically, that's what I want to say, is like, this is happening. We get to choose to be a part of it, but we have to fully show up.
I agree. I 100% agree. And I'm so thankful that we have people like you who are bright and shiny and radiant and willing to, I stress willing, with the willpower, to have the will to actually express and radiate that, and to be in multiple places to do that, like to go for us, like you said. And we all get to, we all have the choice. We all get to. It's not we have to, we get to. And so I would encourage you guys to really dig deep, go inside and ask, what is it? But what's your real choice? And what can you personally do in your sphere of influence in this time? And, whether that's making a post or being kind to someone or doing a little more self-care or educating your children more or your community more, or reading and searching and looking out some things that maybe have been something that you procrastinated on, or maybe not other perspectives or other ideas. One thing that I keep seeing over and over is in my consultations, people are, contacting me about like what's happening and wanting to like work out where they are with it. And I'm like, well, how did you find out about me? And they'll say, well, during the quarantine, I sort of had this wake up. And so we can look at that quarantine isolation type situation as a negative, and we can even look at this whole year 2020 as a member, RE, to do again, remember, unite as one with source, and we get back into that God frequency of love. We have that opportunity to really dig deep, go inside and say, what is it that I'm required to do in this time? What's my part? Because each of us are a cell of God. We have all these cells within us that are, each cell is a cell of God. And then we have this micro macro situation where, how do we do that? Love looks like a lot of different things. And maybe standing up and holding down truth and maintaining truth may not feel like love to anyone out on the outside who's going, and I want my way and like a little whatever. But love looks like a lot of things, including being true, finding truth, being truth, living an active truth, living love, expressing truth, all the things that God is, and holding that, maintaining that at whatever, when someone tries to come and shift the truth or lower the love, which is sin because it's less than love by definition.
Right.
No, this is where I hold the line. And we get to do that. Do your version wherever you are. With any little situation that you're in, at home, at work, whatever, do your own version, because as you do your version of love and standing up and maintaining, that gives a collective energy to the entire planet to actually stay in their truth and stay in their courage and their love and their truth. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
100%.
Love you so much. I love every one of you watching. Send love to Heidi for taking time to be with us today and for being boots on the ground for us and sharing what she saw. And you guys definitely follow her on Facebook and check her out. She's posting some beautiful things on a regular basis, very consistent in love.
Thank you, friend.
And I will talk to you, I'm sure, in the coming days. And for everybody else, just keep holding the line, look deep within, and we will catch up soon. All right. Over.
Yes. Love you, Sharnael.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.